Clear thinking is a skill you can build. Curiosity works the same way. You might believe curiosity is something you either have or you don't, but that idea makes you passive. It makes you wait. Curiosity is a habit, an active choice you practice. Like any other skill. You notice something and then try to understand it. You don't need a special kind of mind. You need a simple pattern you repeat. You look at something, name what you see, and try to connect it to a clear reason. Curiosity grows through small actions done again and again. Boredom often shows up when your mind isn't doing real work. You can be surrounded by information and still feel bored because you're only taking things in. You watch, scroll, and listen, but you don't process, test, or connect what you notice. An active mind treats the world as something that can be understood. Even a small detail can be enough to start thinking. The brain stays alert when it has a clear task, even a simple one like noticing what changes or what stays the same. When you shift from passive intake to active thinking, boredom often fades. Interest returns when your mind has something to do. A small question can begin a long path of clear thinking. You don't need complicated questions. Simple ones like why and how are enough. These questions push your mind to look for structure. They move you from labels to reasons. When you ask how something works, you start looking for parts and steps. When you ask why something happens, you look for causes and limits. Forming your own questions helps you learn more deeply and remember more clearly. It also shows you where your understanding is weak. In daily life, you can take any topic and ask one simple how question. Answer it as clearly as you can. Notice any unclear words, and then ask again in even simpler terms. Simple questions create a clear path for learning. Big topics feel boring when they seem too large to hold in your mind. You might look at a subject and feel overwhelmed, then stop. That reaction is normal, but it doesn't help you think clearly. A better approach is to break the big idea into smaller parts. Instead of treating it as one heavy block, you treat it as a set of pieces. Each piece can be explained in plain language. You define the parts, describe what each one does, and look at how they connect. Then you check whether the whole makes sense. You can use this method for anything. If a topic feels vague, split it into main parts and explain each one in a short, simple sentence. Remove extra words until the meaning is clear. Understanding grows when problems become smaller and more manageable. Curiosity often hides in ordinary things. The everyday world can seem dull, not because it lacks interest, but because you stop looking closely. You start seeing labels instead of details. When you pay attention to simple events, you begin to notice real questions inside them. You don't need rare or dramatic situations. You just need a clear detail to focus on. Careful observation gives your brain useful data. When you notice small changes, you create a problem your mind can work on. The brain engages when it has something specific to track. You can train this by choosing one ordinary object or process and listing what you notice. Then look again and add more details. Comparing your lists shows how much you missed the first time. The act of noticing creates interest. Words can sometimes hide weak thinking. You might repeat a word and feel like you understand it, but that feeling can be misleading. A word can become a cover that blocks real understanding. You can say terms like energy, mindset, or system without having a clear idea in your head. Memorizing terms keeps learning shallow. Connecting words to clear meaning makes learning stronger. You can practice this by pausing when you use an important word and defining it in plain language. Then give one clear example and say what the word does not mean. This removes confusion and forces honesty. You either understand or you see that. You don't yet, and that becomes the starting point for real learning. True understanding replaces empty memorization. Clear thinking gets stronger when you treat ideas as things you can test. Testing doesn't have to happen in a lab. It can happen in your mind. You take an idea and change one part, then ask what should happen if the idea is true. You compare that expected result with what you already know. Instead of holding ideas as fixed beliefs, you move them around and look for their limits. You look for where they might fail. You form a claim. Imagine what should follow from it, and then check whether that fits reality. If it doesn't, the claim needs to change. You can use this in everyday life. If you believe something helps you learn, try it in a simple way for a week. Track one clear measure. Compare the results and adjust. Testing keeps your mind active and prevents dull thinking. A strong mind can say, "I don't know," and keep going. Not knowing can feel uncomfortable, and that discomfort often shuts down curiosity. Learning starts to feel like a threat instead of a process. Accepting that you don't know something is a healthy starting point for clear thinking. Instead of rushing to fill gaps with quick answers, you leave space for real understanding to grow. When you can sit with uncertainty, you keep searching. When you can't, you stop early and accept weak answers. You can train yourself to handle uncertainty by clearly naming what you don't know in one simple sentence. Then list what you would need to learn next. This turns uncertainty into a clear task. Comfort with not knowing supports real discovery. New ideas stick better when they connect to something you already understand. When a concept has no anchor in your mind, it feels like floating words. Linking it to a simple experience gives it a base. You start with something familiar, then add one new step at a time. The brain uses known patterns to understand new ones. When the connection is clear, memory improves and confusion drops. You can use a simple method for this. Take a new idea and write one sentence about what it is like. Then write one sentence about how it is not like that. This keeps the comparison helpful and prevents misunderstandings. When learning connects to simple experience, understanding becomes more stable. Curiosity becomes easier when your attention is protected. You might blame the world for being boring, but often the real issue is scattered focus. When your mind is divided, nothing feels interesting because you can't stay with one idea long enough to understand it. Attention is limited and worth protecting. When you're tired, distracted, or overloaded, your ability to learn drops. Your working memory weakens, and your patience for unclear ideas shrinks. You can support curiosity with simple rules. Reduce distractions when you're learning. Work in short, focused blocks. Take breaks. Keep one clear goal for each block of time. Curiosity depends on having enough mental energy and focus to stay with a question. Curiosity grows when you practice. It's like exercise. You don't need a grand plan, just small actions you repeat. Small actions reduce resistance and make progress easier to see. Instead of waiting for motivation, you use simple routines that keep your mind engaged with questions and explanations. When a behavior is small and consistent, it becomes more automatic over time. The effort feels lighter, and your sense of identity begins to shift. You start to see yourself as someone who looks closer and asks for reasons. You can build a daily practice in just a few minutes. Write one question each day, explain one idea in plain words, and pick one unclear term to define simply. Small daily actions are enough to build a curious mindset. A curious mind changes how the world feels. Boredom often becomes a signal that your mind isn't engaged, that you're receiving without examining. When you return to simple habits of clear thinking, interest comes back. This approach isn't about constant excitement. It's about clarity. It's about paying attention, asking simple questions, and refusing to hide behind empty words. It's about breaking things down, testing ideas, and being honest about what you don't know. A mind that keeps building understanding stays active. When curiosity becomes a habit, the world keeps offering something new to explore.